Welcome to Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy. Earlier this month, friend of the show Tony Ferraiolo celebrated the 10th anniversary of the documentary A Self-Made Man. This film chronicles Tony's work with protecting trans youth, as well as bits of his own personal journey. North Branford High School, Tony's alma mater, hosted the screening, and Transqat was there to capture the prepared remarks of colleagues and friends, and also to encourage attendees to share their Tony stories, talk about Tony's impact on their lives. Tony was the guest of the inaugural episode of Transqat. I encourage you to go back and listen. You'll get a much better sense of why these people are speaking with such love and admiration. To speak plainly, Tony saves lives every day. He opens his heart and he pulls kids back from the edge of the abyss.
Okay. My name is Drew Levisser. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm an openly trans attorney, and I've been working to support trans and queer people for the last 30 years. My superpower has been community, and in particular, my relationship with my best friend, the subject of tonight's documentary, Tony Ferraiolo. Tony and I met while I was on a panel talking about trans rights, thanks to our dear friend who passed this past year, Jerry Marie Leesgang. We co-founded the Jim Collins Foundation in 2007, a trans-led nonprofit that funds surgeries for trans people in need. Many of you in the room have been a part of the success of this life-saving organization named after a Connecticut openly gay man and therapist who was a tremendous ally. Tony and I have been supporting each other as we've both been on the front lines in different ways. While I was litigating cases in federal court and doing national policy work as the director of Lambda Legal's Transgender Rights Project, as you will see firsthand tonight in the film, Tony was volunteering his time to help families and young people find acceptance. Thanks to Healthcare Advocates International, whom you will hear from tonight, he now does this life-saving work full-time. Tony and I have supported each other through the challenges of being an advocate for our community while also being trans people ourselves. I will say with conviction that neither of us would be where we are today without the other one. Tony, I love you. Thank you for being my best friend. Tonight is a big deal. It's a chance to recognize the contribution of Tony. There is no way to accurately quantify the number of people Tony has helped over the years. We could start with the hundreds of families he has served through his groups that are featured in the film. We could add in the number of people whose lives he has touched through the anthologies he's been in, sharing intimate details of his life in books to help give hope to others, or his own published books featuring the artwork and voices of trans youth. We could look at the number of people who received the medically necessary health care they needed with the Jim Collins Foundation over the last 16 years, or the minds we changed with telling our deeply personal stories about our bodies to fight for trans health. Or we could look at the reach he's had with his reality show, Transitioning, that was available on Hulu during the height of the pandemic, giving people hope around the world. But tonight I want to focus on the impact that he has had on people with the documentary A Self-Made Man. Lori Petchers, the brilliant director of this film, was not familiar with the trans community. She was the perfect person to tell this story. This film has won countless awards at film festivals over the last decade, and it's been shown around the world. Many of us who are trans have come to this realization of who we are thanks to the visibility of those who have come before us. Tony himself realized he was trans thanks to seeing a trans documentary. He has paid it forward by being willing to be in a documentary himself. Visibility is hard. It's risky and terrifying and vulnerable. It steals your sleep. But it matters. It inspires. It saves lives. It shows people the way that things are possible, that you can make it, you can create yourself, you deserve to exist. We are at a moment in time right now. It's Pride Month. We are living in the worst moment in trans history in the United States in terms of the anti-LGBTQ attacks, with close to 500 anti-trans bills in the US, most of them targeting trans youth. We are no longer in the shadows. We are visible. This is a scary time for so many of us, particularly our youth. But this backlash wouldn't be happening if it weren't for our success. And this moment is a turning point for us, because with visibility comes understanding. To know us is to love us. Trust that we will be okay. This film was ahead of its time when we were being filmed 11 years ago. We had no idea how much this would be needed, even more so now. It was an important fight when we were making it, and it's even more important fight now. Tony and all the participants in this movie have given the world a tremendous and thoughtful and beautiful gift, a window into their worlds to build empathy and understanding and to connect us all. As his best friend, I will tell you on this momentous night that this gift has come with great cost. Tony has used his story to help train thousands of people to treat trans people with greater respect. That's how important this work is to him, helping trans people be visible. He's been willing to put up with and endure the challenges and self-reflections you need to do to watch yourself over and over and over again. Tony has been a selfless advocate doing this work on the side for many years while holding down a manufacturing manager's job. Finally, 3 years ago, someone saw the value in the work Tony does and allowed him to dedicate himself full-time, valuing the work he does. And that organization is the sponsor of tonight's event, Healthcare Advocates International.
So 3 years ago, my daughter came out as trans. She's 17 now. And I called a hospital around here to make an appointment at a gender clinic because I said, what do we need to do for you? How do we help you? How do we support you? Because right off the bat, we were like, great, what do we need to do? We're on board. And so this place said, well, we can get you in a year and a half. And I said, no, my daughter will not be here in a year and a half. And they said, okay, well, here's the name of this man. I don't know what his schedule's like, but he's helped many kids. And I said, great, give me his number and his name. So they gave me Tony's number and his email, and I emailed him that night. And I said, I know you're extremely busy. I've already Googled your website. I know you're all over the country. Here's my story. Can you just push me? Can you guide me somewhere? Thinking maybe in a month or so I'd hear back from him. An hour later, I got a message from him saying, let's Zoom in the morning. Here's the Zoom link. I'm going to Zoom you at this time. And less than 12 hours later, we were Zooming, and he said, you're going to go here with your daughter. You're going to be okay. Your husband's going to be okay. Your other son's, you're going to be great. And ever since then,
and
suddenly
what seemed overwhelming seemed doable, right?
Yep,
because he was able to direct you.
And it was amazing. And I've been, and I'm not a fangirl of movie stars and sports people, but I'm a fangirl of Tony. Has saved many lives, and my daughter's is one of them.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage the Executive Director of Healthcare Advocates International, Patty McKnight.
So I am Patty McKnight, and I am the Executive Director of Healthcare Advocates International, based in Stratford, Connecticut. And we also have a clinic in Zimbabwe. At Healthcare Advocates International, Dr. Gary Blick and I are surrounded by a caring and compassionate staff that share our vision and our goal to make this world a happier, safer place where every human being is able to live as their authentic self. Our team is made up of empathetic allies and advocates from both inside and outside the LGBTQ+ community. We at HCAI serve the community through prevention, programs, education, and advocacy. We do that in Connecticut, we do it across the country, and we do it around the world. It absolutely takes a village to do the work we're trying to do, and we could not be any happier or any more blessed to count Tony in our village. It's coming up on 3 years, and we have absolutely touched people and saved lives that we would have never encountered if not for Tony. So Tony, thank you for allowing us to do the work we do through you. Thank you all for coming and being here. My hope is that when you leave, you can remember, and I say this as a heterosexual cis woman, we just have to be kind. We don't have to live in the skin of the people that we are kind to. We don't have to understand. We don't even need to agree. We just need to be kind.
It is another step forward in what has been special and what has been life-affirming and what has been life-giving. And Tony's played a part, and Tony Ferraiolo has played a part in that.
Tell me about Tony.
Tony has played a definite part in that, because when I was first trying to figure myself out, as we say in the trans community, when the egg was starting to crack, Tony was there. And Tony, early in my process, before I even understood what my process was, Tony was giving me the lay of the land.
Okay.
And Tony was giving me a lot of advice, and always has. But there was something that he said that stayed with me, and this was not long after I had come out to myself and really come out to the wider world and was starting to really get into the social end of my transition and heading towards the medical part of it. It was 2017. It was at Fantasia Fair in Provincetown.
In P-Town, yeah.
They did a screening of Self-Made Man at Fantasia Fair. Now, I had heard about this movie, and first, having all this history of Tony before this movie came out and getting all these things from Tony, it was great to see Tony's story played out and all the things he had told me before, little snippets of his story, to see it all just played out in this beautiful panorama and this deep, very spiritual story. And it was something very within the spirit that Tony said after the screening and that little Q&A session. And Tony said, we have to get to the point as trans people where we stop dwelling on the medical portion of our existence and more towards the metaphysical, the spiritual, and the human. That is and that stayed with me to this very moment. That has always stayed with me, because that's something that Tony has said in many other ways before, but to put it in that deeper metaphysical context, it went beyond just the checklist and more towards the soul.
Right.
And in many ways, that was the beginning of the next evolution for me.
Well, you and I have worked together for Middlesex Health speaking engagements, and that certainly came across in your story, and the way you tell it is that human aspect, and you could see the connection in their faces because that was at the core of your story, was something human, something about your existence that went so far beyond surgeries or medicines or.
And that's Tony's influence in many ways, because at that time, at the beginning, to hear that really got me to thinking, as you're going through all the checklist stuff. A few months after that Fantasia Fair, I started hormone replacement therapy. Over that next year, I was getting used to a new body and getting used to all those mechanics. And then the year after that, getting the documents changed. And the things he said that night really came to a head for me in 2020. Because 2020, we all know what happened. The world stopped. And for many people in our community, the world started in some ways, because a lot of people walked into the pandemic unsure, and then walked out from the pandemic realizing I know who I am. Yeah. And for me, it was an examination, because all the things I like to do were not available because they were all shut down thanks COVID. Yeah. And what I had to deal with was the essential question: who is Carly Webb?
Yeah.
I had to ask the question, who is Carly Webb, and figure out an answer. And what helped me find those answers during that time was the things Tony told me, which is, okay, the checklist part is secondary. The primary thing is the heart, the soul, the metaphysical, the human. Who are you as a person? How do you want to walk in the world as a person, not necessarily a transgender person, not necessarily as a black woman of trans experience, but as Carly Webb, the person? How do you want to walk out into the world?
How do you want to walk? How do you want to interact with others?
Yes.
How do you carry yourself?
What moves you? What's your passions? How do you want to work? I mean, how do you want to work for yourself? How do you want to work for others? How do you want to work for the community? Do you want to engage in the struggle? That was and I was able to answer those questions during that time and into 2021. And that's what led me to, in many ways, to what you saw at Middletown Pride.
Yeah.
What you saw there was the influence of so many people.
This is Claire's bestie talking.
So
Tell
me.
Tony's group and his partner Don have been my lifeline. They let me know that I wasn't alone. When my child came out, I did not know anyone who was trans or anyone that I knew was trans. And I just felt very isolated and alone. And after talking to Tony and Don on the phone and going to group, I realized that, I wasn't alone. There were others going through the same thing that I was going through. And they held me together while we got the help we needed for my child and, sent them on their path, and they mean everything to me. When my child was in crisis, Tony was there. It's like, let's meet up. Let's do what we can do to help get you through this hard patch and keep you going. So, Tony, thank you.
Tonight is a benefit, and we are here to support organizations that are making a real difference in trans and queer people's lives in Connecticut, especially young people. Thank you to each of you for being here. Your presence alone is already making a difference. So I want to introduce you to the first speaker from the recipient organizations. Please join me in welcoming Mel Cordner, founder and executive director of Q+, to the stage.
So I want to tell you about Q+, about our story really quickly. We started because young people told me, here's what we need, and I said, let's figure it out. And every single program that we do is because a young person said, here's what we need, and me and my team said, let's figure it out. And that shouldn't be novel or impressive, but a lot of other places aren't doing that. Fast forward a few years, we have 10 youth groups in 6 towns right now. We have 3 parent groups. We do open mics in a lot of places now. They're great, please go, they're so much fun. We do a lot of other things. We have a summer camp that focuses on social justice and advocacy, so we do a lot of workshops on how do you go to your school administrator and let them know what you need? How do you get your community involved if you're not getting the support you need at school? What are some resources you can access if you're not getting the support you need at home? So it's about empowering them, but then we also do a lot of stuff that's just fun, because it's also about uplifting young people and letting them be young people. When we're not doing that, we go into schools, we do GSA visits, we do meetups, which is bringing youth from multiple schools into one space so they can kind of workshop each other's, here's what we did for Day of Silence, and we do professional development trainings. Those are fun because I get to go and talk to teachers, social workers, so on, about how they should be respecting their queer youth, because a lot of times it's just that they don't know how, and they're too scared to ask anybody. Sometimes I meet folks because I'm at their Board of Ed scolding them because they didn't hire me and they should have. Because Connecticut has better protections than pretty much most states, almost all of them, but we're still doing things wrong here. There were 2 schools this week so far that I know of that issued an apology for showing and acknowledging Pride Month, basically, for showing a video in homerooms that said, hey, it's Pride Month, it's June, which they've probably done before. But this year the backlash is stronger. We already had mentioned that a bit. You all know that laws are being passed in other states. Tennessee, being in drag in public's illegal, which, these folks don't know drag versus trans versus gay, they think we're all the same thing. Florida just decided that being a trans minor is illegal. We literally have families moving up here from Florida to protect their kids. And I mean dropping everything, dropping their co-parent and their older kids and their job just to make sure that their trans kid doesn't get taken away by the state. And they're coming here. So we have a lot of work to do across the country, and we have a lot of work to do right here. I'm working with several schools that are working on their bullying policies and working on how to enforce them, because we're not doing great. And by that I mean bullying is pretty much at a crisis level in schools now today, and we need to do better. The big message I'm always giving my kids, they come in and they're like, oh, you're going to train us how to fix the world and how to do this and how to do that. And I'm like, yes, but also first let's play Uno. And they're like, why though? And I'm like, because you're kids and you deserve to play Uno. And a lot of times no one said that to them before. So what I want to say to queer kids, and what I keep saying to queer kids, is it is not your job to fix this. And it's okay to tell people what you need, please do tell us what you need, but it's not your job to fix this. And when we make the kids be the person to fix it, we're setting them up to not succeed at what they need to be succeeding at as young people, because they're too busy educating the adults to focus on their grades or college or sports or whatever it is. So young folks, it is not your job to fix this. Adults in the room, guess what? It is our job. And y'all can help. There are tons of ways you can help. You can come talk to us at the table after. If you know queer young people, if you are teaching, if you have kids who have friends that are queer, whatever it is, talk to them. They know what they need, nobody's asking. So talk to the young people in your life, talk to the advocates in your life, talk to me, talk to Tony. We will give you ideas. And together is how we're going to support our community, because together is how our community has always supported itself and each other, and that's what we have to do and what we have to keep doing now.
I've known Tony since I had a kiddo who desperately needed community, and I went looking because she was miserable. It's funny because we often talk about unicorns as being this rare, magical, beautiful creature, highly valued. And when a person is described as a unicorn, that's supposed to be like a little bit of magic. But when you're being described as a unicorn, it means you're really lonely. You feel like nobody else is like you. And when you're 5 or 6 or 11 or 12, that's a horrible place to be in. And Tony gave my daughter community. So she knew that she wasn't a unicorn, and that was a really good thing. She needed to know that there were other kids like her. That saved her life. And I really appreciate how Tony is able to honestly acknowledge a child's pain without getting mired in it.
Right.
And he's able to show them the joy and the hope in this community and in being trans. That made a world of difference for her. And then for my son when he came out. So
both your kids are doing...
They're fantastic. They are wonderful human beings, and they're happy.
Next, I'd like to introduce the North Branford High School GSA Club.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the anniversary showing of A Self-Made Man. My name is Nicole Esposito LaCroix. My pronouns are she, her. I am a proud alumnus of NBHS, and I am currently in my 20th year as a teacher at NBHS. All of us are here tonight. We all have opportunities. We all have opportunities to learn. Maybe it will be more insight about ourselves, or maybe it will be how to positively impact one another with our words of kindness. Or maybe it will be how to learn how much our words really matter. We all have opportunities to laugh, and maybe we will even cry, but showing and sharing our emotions will allow us to grow. We all have opportunities to share what we know. Tony will offer an opportunity for you to ask questions, and we all will have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about his journey. We all took the opportunity to be here tonight, and maybe your reason is the same as someone else sitting here, or maybe it's completely different. But we all have the opportunity to meet someone new and learn something. It shouldn't go unnoticed that Tony consistently comes back to North Branford to give back to the community he grew up in. The many years of watching Tony speak to my health classes, to our GSA, and to educate our staff at all of the schools in North Branford have helped me and many others validate the biggest tools in our teacher toolbox. They are compassion, empathy, and patience. He has profoundly given us the ability to educate others. He has opened the door of dialogue long after he has shared his story and wealth of knowledge. Often, I get an email or stopped in the hallway, and I will be asked, what do I do when a student says this in class? Or what should I do if I think a student is struggling with their identity? Or what if their parents might not be supportive? Or even, how do I teach this topic to make sure all my students feel included and safe? These staff members want to nurture their students so they can learn in the safety of their classroom and in the hallways. And I believe that Tony's ability to educate helps make this happen. Beyond the classroom, I am also the proud advisor of our school's GSA, which I've met many of you out in the lobby, and we didn't have a GSA when we were in high school. I would like to introduce this year's president of our GSA, Addie Reish.
My name is Addie, my pronouns are she, they, and I am the president of North Branford High School's GSA Club. Our club is dedicated to educating students, staff, about love, acceptance, and the importance of the LGBTQIA+ community. Every year, we celebrate Ally Week, which is an opportunity to raise awareness for our club and LGBTQ individuals, in which students and staff can participate in various activities such as Crazy Sock Day and School Spirit Day. And we end this Ally Week to celebrate GLSEN's National Day of Silence. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, the GLSEN Day of Silence is a student-led demonstration where LGBTQ students and allies all around the country take a vow of silence to protest the harmful effects of harassment and discrimination of LGBTQ people in schools. The GSA Club creates lanyards for students to wear on this day to indicate that they are participating. We also make and hand out pins to raise awareness for some important days throughout the school year, such as Breast Cancer Awareness Day, Sexual Assault Awareness Day, Pride Month, and so on. All around our halls, you can see students and staff proudly sporting these pins on their own backpacks and lanyards. Our club is very thankful to be participating in tonight's event. A very special thanks to Tony Ferraiolo for this opportunity, and thank you all for being here.
Well, I met Tony when my child first transitioned. Well, obviously my child came out even before we were aware. We had a new child, and so we thought, oh, just jealous of the baby, just gravitates towards those toys because we didn't have them in the house, and until it became no denying. So started being asked to be called a different name at home, writing boy names on their homework. So we went to a couple specialists, and so they confirmed what we know, and so they said, well, so we went home and we're like, okay, we're going to allow our son to be who he is. And then I was like, okay, well, now what do? I don't know anybody.
What does that
I want to
mean
meet
practically?
a family.
Yeah.
I want to meet somebody else's child, something. So I did a bunch of research online. I looked for anything and everything, and I called a stranger. And so they were kind enough to talk to me. And so they said, you know something? I know somebody that you might know. And that's when Tony called me for the very first time. And we went to Tony's group, and it was amazing and eye-opening. So the next time we were going to a bar mitzvah, we were on our way to New York, and this was the first time that we were going to allow our son to dress as who he was. We went out to pick out some clothing. We picked out a suit for our younger son. And by the way, our younger son said to us when we told him, he was like, I knew that already. When we picked out the clothing, I was picking out something kind of gender neutral. And he's like, why can't I have a suit? So we picked out a suit, and we were on the way, and we were at Tony's group, and it was the happiest day I think I've ever seen him in my life. And we're grateful to Tony and to all the wonderful families that we've met, so much so I've become an advocate and an ally myself and gotten very involved, and I couldn't be more grateful to everyone that we've met and encountered. It's been amazing.
Finally, I'd like to introduce my friend, the Reverend Aaron Miller of TV 365.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here, and I'm so grateful to be among you. I'm Reverend Aaron Miller. I'm the pastor of the Metropolitan Community Church of Hartford, and I'm also a chaplain with the Yale Pediatric Gender Program. MCC Hartford, if you don't know anything about MCC, we've been around since 1968. We were actually started right before the Stonewall riots, and it was because we weren't welcome in our churches as LGBTQ folks. And so MCC Hartford started 5 years after that, but the key about that is that we are as much a social justice movement and as we are a ministry. And so that's sort of our chemistry and our makeup. So we started a new ministry, an outreach. It was in November of 2021, and the co-founder is here with me as well, Regina Dighton, and she named it. And a lot of what we do is around church hurt, that people get hurt in the churches. And this is a welcoming church that, to be honest with you, we aren't just welcoming. We are the church. We are LGBTQ, the faithful at MCC. So in November of 2021, we started TV 365, which was named by Regina, and it stands for Trans Visibility and Voice. 365 days a year, because what became clear to us is that the TDOR is the only time that we get together as a community, and it's the only time that we see what the community needs. And so it kicked off in 2021 with the generosity of Healthcare Advocates International, and we have been growing leaps and bounds ever since. It is about meeting the needs. If there wasn't a clothing line named this, we would call ourselves The Gap, because we literally step into a place where there are basic needs or critical needs that are needed, and other programs that we do as well, until some of the support systems can get into place. We have literally saved lives. There are many, many stories that we could share and we hold in our heart for the work that we're doing. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is the circus, the youth circus. It's a transgender, gender expansive youth circus program. And the beauty of this, and again supported by Healthcare Advocates International, it's for kids that are 6 to, well, it's really 10 through 16. But these are kids that are perhaps staying in their room. They're not social. They're withdrawn. And they come out and they learn how to juggle and they learn how to do some things. And I have to tell you just one story of the first day that I saw everybody get there. The kids wouldn't shake our hand. They wouldn't give us eye contact. There was personal space that was mandated. And by the end of the hour, they were friends. To this day, they have sleepovers at each other's houses. They yuck it up as kids in the final performance, which they write and they perform in. And it's absolutely wonderful to see kids just be kids. And I think that's the greatest beauty. And you heard that from Mel. Kids have a hard time anyway, but you add this to that. And this is something even adults don't understand. And now we've asked the kids to explain it to us as they come out. The only other thing I also would mention is that we do ID clinics, name and gender change clinics, which is a pro bono or a free service that we offer so that people can get on their journey. But one of the things that I need to say is that you can see me in the collar. We're about love. And I would say to you that we are not religious. We are bound together by love. And that's really all of us. All of us have a spiritual journey. All of us are finding our way. All of us are doing that. The kindness, yes. The love, unconditionally. And that's what we're called to give. And for us, and Regina came up with this, it's our transmission. Because we put love into gear. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're expanding. And all right, so now I have to tell you about Tony, because I wanted to give you a little setup, but I have to roll it back. 15 years ago, I transitioned. So my pronouns are he, him. But 15 years ago, I didn't know where to go. And part of what Drew said is important to say. 15 years ago, there was nothing. And I don't know if you know that, but 15 years ago, there was no support. There was no education. There were no laws because nobody knew we were here. There was nobody to call. There was nobody to ask. There just was nothing. But a friend of a friend of a friend knew Tony and said, well, let me pass your name along and maybe he'll give you a call. And so, sure, Tony called me and he said, let's meet so we can talk. I said, okay, let's meet at Starbucks downtown New Haven. So I was so excited. And, I'm not young. And I'm sitting there like, a school kid, waiting for Tony to show up. And then the time comes and it goes. And it's like 15 minutes after. And then a half an hour after. And I can tell you this, I'm never early, but I was a half an hour early for this. And then the time is clicking away. And then I call Tony. I go, aren't you coming? And he said, it's next Saturday. But here's the truth. 15 years later, I am so incredibly grateful to be able to work alongside him now to help save these children and these adults in the work we do together. I'm sure all of us have a story, so please make sure you meet with someone out in the lobby to tell your story. But all of us here have a story or will have a story or know somebody who has a story. He has saved many lives. One of those lives was mine, and I will forever grateful for that. This is the greatest pyramid ever because we just keep loving more and more and more and more. And the more people that are saved, the more people, it's actually your kids that are coming to us now as adults that lived long enough to get help as they start their adult life. How beautiful is that?
This is episode 29 of season 1 of Transqat. Look for 3 more episodes in July, and then I'm going to take August and catch my breath and reset a little bit. The Transqat team, Newt, the Lady Bethesda, Sun, and Nomi tell me that a little self-care is in order. We'll be back for a second season starting in September, and I already have some exciting guests lined up for you. This has been Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy. Thanks for listening. Let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece. Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC. Copyright 2022, all rights reserved. Join us on the web at transqat.com. That's TRANSQAT.com. There, you'll find links to Transqat, the blog, writing projects, speaking engagements, and more. You can also meet the team who thought spelling cat with a Q was a good idea. Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Leave us a comment on whatever platform you use to stream this podcast. Just remember to be kind. She has enough self-esteem problems already. To reach Claire with a question or a suggestion for an upcoming episode, just use the contact page at the website or email her directly at crmtransqat@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.